So violations of the Emoluments Clause also occurred under Trump's first term. And I really like this thing that people say about the Emoluments Clause. You got what's the damages, right? Well, that's why I started looking into this question, kind of studying it. And it deals with, can you sue a government for corruption? There have been legal theorists all over the world that have studied this question. They've come up with different positions. The obvious easy one for corruption that everyone seems to deal with is the corruption by handshakes, right? Like the government, you're in business and and you sell widgets to the government. You want to sell your widgets to the government, but your competitor widget maker who makes a crappy widget, but that widget maker goes in there and he brings prostitutes and cocaine and cash and good food and all this stuff and treats that decision maker at the government like you can't believe. And so that person in that government really likes this guy because he got laid and coked out of his head and lots of cash. And so he's like, okay, I'll buy 1 trillion of your damn widgets. Of course. Because that's the person. But your product is better. In those environments, they would say you would sue the government for its corruption because your product is better, and you would try to prove corruption cost your company cash. All right? But the question is the other aspects. So I'm going to link to some of the videos that I have that were asking those fascinating questions. Probably the one that I think that works the best today is reputation. The United States is being seen as a corrupt nation. The best example of how corruption actually occurs and damages an organization is happening today. It's called Tesla and Elon Musk. So let's just go through the history of why Elon Musk's and Tesla sales are dog crap and why people burn Teslas and destroy charging stations. The answer to that question is corruption. It's very simple. And the damages of corruption, at least what people perceive as corruption. So Elon buys Twitter, and he brings back a lot of people who people believe are wrong or immoral or whatever, like people who praise Nazis. He brings back people who, are hit with multi-billion-dollar fines because they were saying things like, parents of murdered children, that their children were never murdered, or that maybe even those parents murdered their children in order to make gun owners look bad. And I'm never going to say that son of a bitch's name because people who treat parents of murdered children like that, to me, are subhuman scum, and I don't even want to acknowledge they exist. But they were allowed to be on Twitter. And some other things, people who lies and conspiracy theories, and always going after people who are, quote, woke. But the problem is that a lot of people who were woke were people who were the primary market for electric cars. People who are woke are environmentalists, people who believe that there should be ethics and morals governing society, and they try to create this thing called being woke because politically correct was damaged, and some people, so wokeness was about trying to establish ethics and morality within a society and punishing people who were immoral and unethical, and trying to do that. The problem was that sometimes it went too far, but what started happening is people who were purchasers of electric cars were environmentalists, and environmentalists is where you're going to find a lot of woke people at the time. Now what happens is he starts buying Trump, hundreds of millions of dollars. That makes people really nervous because all of his primary market, environmentalists, realize that what Trump is he's completely against electric cars and completely against clean energy, and people who like clean energy like electric cars. His reputation starts going down. His reputation goes further down when Trump wins because of his actions in certain things that Elon does, like his lottery, that makes people think that Elon is becoming very corrupt. So Tesla sales start dropping as a result of this. On top of that, he starts being involved in Doge. And Doge starts accessing people's data on federal computers. The problem, and he starts implementing horrible policies like stopping aid to like food aid to starving people in Africa and Central Asia, and people who live in jungles, and stopping them getting the medications that they need to save their lives. And people start to die. And all of this stuff starts happening. Talk about taking away medical attention from people within the United States, depriving people of constitutional rights, things of that nature. And these become him. As his reputation dives, and it starts getting really, really bad all over the world, people start literally being, not just not buying his cars, people start burning his cars, giving his cars. Nobody buys his cars because Elon is seen as corrupt. And his corruption is injuring people all over the world. At least that's what the whole world sees. And as a result, these terrible things start happening to Tesla, and because of Elon's reputation. The same can happen with a nation. In a nation, corruption like this causes things like boycotts in Canada and people all over the world not coming here. Tourism drops, and tourism has been dropping by 20% or more, and boycotting of American-made stuff. Reputational injuries, like that of the Emoluments Clause, injures the ability for the United States to fairly conduct business around the world when we are seen as corrupt. Reputational damages caused by things like violating the Emoluments Clause generates reputational harm to the United States, which ultimately translates into economic harm and jobs harm of people who just have little jobs, all the way up to companies like McDonald's and Walmart and Costco. So that's where the Emoluments Clause and these emoluments violations turn into actual economic harm. And that if people who are examining these videos, like I hope you are if you are an attorney for things like Bevan's actions, that's an area to look into. Is the reputational injury to the United States, which became economic damage, which is actually quantifiable by the effectiveness of global boycotts of American products, for example, in Canada. Thank you.